10. Miracle herbs to supercharge your leg circulation now. Helen, 74, lives alone in a small wooden house near the edge of the woods in Springfield, Missouri. She has lived in that house for more than 30 years, since her husband, Walter, died of a stroke at the age of 52. Since then, Helen has never left this land, where every tree knows her name and every squirrel that runs across the yard seems to know who she is. However, in the past few years, every morning when she stepped out onto the porch to water the lavender pots or pick up fallen yellow leaves, she began to feel something strange. At first her feet felt as cold as ice, even though the weather was only slightly chilly. Then gradually her feet became so numb that she had to hold onto the wall to walk, taking short steps like a child learning to walk. Many times she almost fell in the bathroom because her legs were no longer strong enough to support her body. Even more frightening, one time while cooking, she collapsed on the table because she could not feel anything from her knees down. The doctor diagnosed her with peripheral vascular insufficiency, a dangerous condition that often occurs in the elderly. Poor blood circulation to the legs causes the nerves to gradually become damaged, even at risk of necrosis if not treated promptly. But Helen was not one to give up easily. Growing up in a time of war and economic depression, she learned to rely on nature to heal herself with the simplest things. After consulting with doctors and nutritionists, she began a very special journey to restore vitality to her legs with miraculous herbs that can improve natural blood circulation. Not expensive medications, not complicated medical interventions, but plants that grow right in your backyard or in your local supermarket. Every morning she brewed a cup of tea from crimson hawthorn leaves. At noon she added a little crushed ginger to her chicken soup, and at night she soaked her feet in warm water with a pinch of bright yellow turmeric powder. These seemingly simple herbs warmed her feet day by day, as if the blood was returning after a long sleep. And then, just a few months later, she could walk around the garden by herself, basket in hand, picking leaves, feet walking on soft grass, just like when she was 50 years old. Have you ever heard about 10 herbs that can awaken the sleeping blood in your legs? You may live in the heart of New York City or in the warm countryside of Arkansas, but Helen's story could be yours too. Do you have numb feet? Cold feet even when it's not cold? Or frequent nighttime cramps? These seemingly insignificant signs, in fact, are cries for help from a circulatory system that's weakening every day. And the good news is, you don't have to go through it alone. Today, you and I will embark on a journey of rejuvenation together, a journey to discover 10 herbs that have helped thousands of seniors in the U.S. improve their blood circulation, restore vitality to their legs, and live healthy lives without depending on drugs. And remember, this is not a trick, not some obscure secret, but a real story, real science, coming from the hearts of people who have suffered and healed themselves. We'll start with the first one, an ancient plant that has the ability to expand blood vessels, awakening every paralyzed capillary. But before that, if you have ever had cold feet, numb feet, or know someone who has, comment your story below. And if you think this video can help someone, please share it with them. Finally, click like and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next magical health journeys. Now then, let's start with the first herb, Ginkgo Biloba, memory of blood. Franklin Monroe, 78, a retired postal worker, lives alone in a small apartment overlooking a lake. Every morning he sits by the window, sipping black coffee without sugar, looking out at the row of golden ginkgo trees down the street, the same spot where he and his wife used to sit for hours on autumn afternoons. In the past, he and his wife Marjorie had a habit that everyone in the neighborhood knew. Every afternoon around 4 p.m., they would put on their coats, walk down the street, and sit under an ancient ginkgo tree. They called it the memory tree because each falling leaf seemed to evoke a piece of memory. Then, last winter, Marjorie died of sudden heart failure. From then on, Franklin no longer went out into the streets every afternoon. His legs began to weaken, and each step seemed disoriented, but the most painful thing was the feeling of emptiness. Not only did the blood not return to his legs, but it seemed that his heart was also growing colder every day. My legs felt like they weren't mine, he told the doctor. They were cold and suffocating from the inside. After a series of tests, doctors diagnosed him with peripheral circulatory insufficiency and early-stage dementia, a combination that significantly impaired his ability to walk and remember. However, something strange happened after he accidentally listened to Marjorie's old diary, where she used to write down herbal recipes to stay healthy, in which there was a scribbled but loving line, "Ginkgo, that ancient tree, both keeps your legs strong and keeps your memory from drifting too far away from me." From that day on, he started taking ginkgo every morning, not as a medicine, but as a promise to the deceased. And then, the miracle happened slowly, like an old clock being wound up. First, the numbness in his legs gradually disappeared. Then he could walk around the block without a cane. And then, one October afternoon, he sat down under the ginkgo tree again, alone, but no longer lonely. Ginkgo Biloba. It sounds like an ancient exotic tree, but for people like Franklin, it is a bridge between memory and at the present. The plant contains flavonoids and terpenoids, two compounds that dilate blood vessels, increasing circulation, especially to remote areas like the legs and brain. It doesn't cure everything, but it keeps the blood flowing, keeping the memory alive. And in hundreds of studies in the U.S., ginkgo has been shown to support memory, prevent brain degeneration, and improve blood circulation to the limbs, something millions of seniors need. Franklin's story may not be yours, but if you've ever had a loved one whose memory is fading, or if you've ever felt like your feet were no longer listening to you, consider listening to nature. Not because ginkgo is magical, but because sometimes nature and a little memory can revive a bloodline that was thought to be dormant. Ginkgo is not just a herb for those who have loved, lost, and longed to walk again. It is the memory of blood. The music slowly played, unchained melody by the Righteous Brothers echoing through the open space. The man in the gray suit, the sleeves a little worn, extended his hand toward his wife, a thin woman, frail in appearance, but still full of mischief in her eyes. "Do you want to dance, like in 1974? He smiled, his eyes nostalgic. She tried to smile, but shook her head slightly. "Tonight, my legs are numb again, like someone tied them up." Linda Mayers, 73, lives with her husband, Robert, in the suburbs of Tucson, Arizona. She is a former elementary school teacher, loves dancing, and has taught hundreds of children how to perform folk dances in school performances. But over the past 6 years, her feet have begun to betray her. At first it felt cold, then it turned to burning pain, and finally, nothing at all. "It's like the ground is gone from under my feet," she once told her husband. After many tests, the doctor informed her that she had neuropathy, nerve damage due to diabetes complications, causing severe blood circulation in the legs. And then, one night, while Robert was quietly scrolling through his phone in the dark, he found an article about an herb that could increase blood circulation, but in a very special way. It burned inside, gently like a smoldering spark, warming every capillary from the heels to the top of the head. The name sounds like a challenge: Cayenne Pepper. "Drink this? Are you going to burn me alive?" "No, this is nature's kiss of fire. It gets the blood flowing like when we first got married." At first she refused. The spiciness made her choke, but then she tried again. A little in her tomato soup, a little mixed with lemon in her morning water. And then the strange things began. Not a quick miracle, but a quiet transformation. Nights without sudden cramps. Feet slowly feeling warm again, like stepping on a small sun. Sometimes just a slight numbness, not like a block of ice pressing on the heart. Cayenne contains capsaicin, a compound that helps the body produce nitric oxide, dilates blood vessels, and increases circulation. But for Linda, it was the fire that awakened emotions that had been dormant in her legs, her heart, and even her marriage. Do you still have that song from that year? Yes? Then, I think I can dance today. She did not dance like a girl of 20, but she walked. Each step was light, each turn. The whole space seemed frozen. Linda didn't just beat a disease. She beat the feeling of losing herself. And you see, each magical herb that we think of as just a cooking ingredient is actually a character in the story of people who are fighting every day to keep their legs and hearts. Cayenne pepper, not just a spice. It is a memory that burns again, the first music that resonates in a wife who seems to no longer know how to dance. And now, imagine one day you completely lose feeling in your feet, but instead of spicy, you find a small piece of ginger, rustic, warm, but powerful enough to get your blood moving. In the next section, you'll meet Mr. Leroy, an Ohio veteran who thought his cold feet were a price to pay for the war until he started eating a slice of ginger every day and started feeling the ground under his feet again. The house sits quietly on the outskirts of Columbus, a place no one would have thought would once house a man who had set foot on the battlefield in Afghanistan, had survived the line between life and death, but fell by his own feet. His name is Leroy Daniels, 76 years old. People often called him the soldier who never walked again, because after the war he almost withdrew into silence. No friends, no children who often visited. He had only himself, and the old wooden chair opposite the porch where he sat looking out at the fields every morning. But what hurt him the most was not the memories of war, but the feeling of no longer being able to touch the real ground. It was like my leg had been gutted, he said in a rare conversation with the local community doctor. Mr. Leroy's feet were as cold as ice, day after day. One time he dropped the cigarette he was smoking. The light burned lightly on his sock, but he felt nothing. It was no longer numbness, but a complete loss of connection between his body and himself. His wife, Carol, had died of pancreatic cancer nearly 10 years ago. She was the only one who knew how to bring him back when the war memories overwhelmed his mind, and among the hundreds of recipes she left behind, there was one she used to make every time he returned from the hospital. Fresh ginger tea with honey and lemon. Just one sip, she used to say, let you know you can still feel the warmth of this earth. He decided to recreate the same recipe as a way to find Carol again, not for a cure, just to feel something. But then, after a few weeks, he began to notice something strange. His legs gradually warmed up, as if blood had begun to flow back into them. The cramps from sitting for long periods of time were significantly reduced, and most importantly, his sleep became deeper, and he no longer woke up in the middle of the night feeling like his legs were disappearing. Ginger, a rustic root, was the last anchor connecting him to the ground. Medicinally, ginger contains gingerols and shogals, compounds that dilate blood vessels, reduce inflammation, and improve circulations to the limbs. But for Leroy, ginger is more than just medicine. It is his last connection to his wife's memory, to his humanity, and to the earth he fought to protect. Sometimes a sip of ginger can change the way you feel for the rest of your life. It doesn't have to be anything big. It doesn't have to be a miracle drug. Just a reminder that I'm still here. Somewhere in the middle of cold Ohio, a veteran stepped out of the emotionless dream of old age, thanks to a piece of ginger his wife left behind. But you think the story ends there? No, because in the sunny south, where the wind blows through hundreds of hawthorn bushes along the roadside, there is another man, also fighting to keep his heart beating. A man who lost his wife to a stroke now fears he will die alone, unless he finds a way to keep blood flowing to his heart and to his toes. It's been a long time since I've been back to Georgia, he thought to himself. There was an old friend there, Gus Thompson, who had been his comrade and the only survivor of their squad that year in Kandahar. Gus had long since left the war. He lived with his old dog, Bullet, and a garden behind him, where dozens of hawthorn bushes grew among the rotten redwood fence. Every morning he picked a few red berries, brewed them into tea, and sipped them alone. But no one knows that Gus lives every day with his greatest fear. His heart will stop beating when no one remembers his name anymore. Gus's wife, Ruby, died of a stroke 3 years ago. Gus found her slumped over the sink, clutching a half-finished dishcloth. After that, he stopped eating salt. No red meat. No more sipping bourbon every night. Only hawthorn tea. The plant Ruby grew by the fence, which she said kept his heart from going hard. At first, Gus didn't believe in blood-circulating fruits. But then, on the first night of his angina, he curled up in the middle of the cold kitchen, fumbling for his medicine box, and finding nothing but a small bag labeled hawthorn tea. He mixed it and drank it in despair. Not long after, his chest felt lighter. His heartbeat was no longer frantic. No miracles, just his heart remembering how it used to beat slowly, like before. Like when he was in love. And then Gus began to learn how to live again. Not long, but deep. Hawthorn, according to cardiologists, is high in natural flavonoids, which help dilate blood vessels, improve circulation, and strengthen the walls of blood vessels. But for Gus, it's not a substance. It's a brake on the slippery slope of aging, keeping him from falling into a void of apathy. You're right, Ruby. This heart still knows how to love, even after losing you. From Ohio to Georgia, from ginger tea to red hawthorn, do you see it? A bloodline is finding its way again, not just in bodies, but in memories, emotions, and unfinished lives. But do you think the journey ends there? Or not? On the West Coast, where Los Angeles is noisy and bustling, there is a woman who used to be a famous choreographer, now can't even get out of bed. Her name is Clarissa Dawn, and her story is proof that sometimes, when all hope seems lost, life begins with a yellowish-brown root, turmeric. No one can remember the last time Clarissa Dawn danced. It could have been 2000, the Winter Swan, where she led a troupe of young dancers through 3 acts with her lithe body. Or it could have been earlier, when she was still able to walk unassisted. Clarissa was once a star of the West Coast contemporary dance scene. A lithe, ageless, gravity-defying body. But age, like the ocean breeze, erodes silently. At the age of 68, she discovered that she had severe knee arthritis and leg vein degeneration. Every step was a battle. Her legs were swollen, purple, and in constant pain. No more stage, no more students. Just a second-floor apartment with a dancing mirror covered with a cloth. Clarissa had never believed in folk remedies. But one day, at a reunion of former artists, an old friend, who had also suffered from severe arthritis, gave her a small bottle and said simply, "Add it to hot milk every night. If not to cure the pain, then at least to remember that the blood is still flowing." Clarissa tried it, reluctantly. Turmeric was a spice she had hated. It smelled bad. It was sticky. And the color was too bright for her fading life. But then, after just 3 weeks, something tender happened. Mornings when she woke up, her joints no longer ached. Her feet were no longer as pale as cold potatoes. And most importantly, Clarissa could stand, not exactly to dance, but to walk. Turmeric, with curcumin as its main ingredient, has the ability to reduce inflammation, dilate blood vessels, and help blood flow to lower areas of the body, such as the feet, knees, and ankles. But for Clarissa, turmeric is more than just an anti-inflammatory. It is the spotlight that is turned back on for someone who thought she had gone behind the scenes forever. No one clapped anymore. No music. But she knew. The blood was returning to her toes, and her heart was learning to show up again, like before. A soldier in Ohio, a husband in Georgia, an artist in California. No one talked about herbs. They talked about feeling back in touch with themselves. And did you notice? Ginger, hawthorn, turmeric are not solutions, but the body's memory reawakened. She didn't answer right away, but as she stood in front of the mirror that afternoon, her arms raised in the familiar dance move, she smiled. Maybe, just a bit, and the legs will tell the rest. His name is Raymond Silva, 71 years old, retired carpenter. His body is still muscular, but his legs are different, weak, cold, numb, and seemingly silently dying. His only daughter, Sophia, 31 years old, is the only one who witnesses that decline every day. Dad used to carry a wooden box twice as heavy as he was, and now he can't even hold his slippers. Sophia didn't dare say those words, but she felt it every time she had to wipe his feet when he was too weak to stand under the shower. Doctors say diabetic neuropathy is severely reducing blood flow to his legs. Every day is a day closer to a wheelchair. Sophia once read in a Mayo Clinic study that garlic, with its compound allicin, can promote blood vessel dilation, increase nitric oxide production, help improve circulation, reduce inflammation and blood pressure. But for her, garlic was more than just a medicine. It was the smell of her childhood. Whenever she had a fever, her father would pound raw garlic and mix it with honey and force her to swallow it. Whenever she caught a cold, he would rub garlic on the soles of her feet as if to chase away the illness with his rough hands. Now it was the other way around. Sophia was the one who prepared the garlicky food for her father every day, from morning porridge to lunchtime soup to evening soup. Not because she believed in miracles, but because she couldn't bear to give up. One day, while setting the table, Sophia suddenly saw her father, Raymond, stand up without holding on to the edge of the table. "Father?" He turned, his eyes sparkling, though his steps were still shaky. "I don't know if it's the garlic, or you, but today I can feel my legs again." Garlic, something that many people avoid because of its smell, is the last thread connecting two generations. One is losing his body, the other is holding on day by day. According to many studies, garlic not only helps improve blood circulation, but also helps reduce cholesterol, increase cardiovascular endurance, and especially helps limbs reawaken for those who are gradually losing sensation. But Raymond didn't need to study. He just walked to the balcony, stood next to the pot of coriander, and said to his daughter, "Tomorrow I will walk to the market with you. I don't promise to go far, but I promise to start walking." Those legs, which once trembled beside the bed, are now finding the ground again, not with machines, but with the passionate white garlic, and with love. And then, at dinner, as Mr. Raymond chewed on a piece of grilled meat with a little burnt garlic powder on the edges, he turned and said, "I remember your grandfather also ate garlic, but he also ate a small black sour fruit. Do you know what it is?" Sophia smiled. "Bilberry, European blueberries. We can buy them on Amazon. Do you want to try it?" He nodded. "Dad, I ordered bilberry from France. They say it's the right kind for older people with blurred vision and poor circulation in their legs." Raymond did not reply. He sat in the dark, rubbing his calf, as was his old habit, but then he smiled softly. "You know, my grandfather used to pick a fruit like this in the Ozarks. He called it the night eye of the forest. Chewing it made you see light better, even in the dark." Sophia wasn't sure what it was, but the image of a hunched old man sitting in the woods at night, chewing on sour berries to see better, kept in her mind all night. His eyesight had been so bad that he could no longer tell the difference between Health and Heath, but now he flipped through the pages more quickly. "The small print doesn't dance like it used to," he said, "and the strange thing is, my feet don't feel as cold." Sophia knew bilberries were doing the trick. High in anthocyanins, the fruit has been shown to dilate blood vessels, reduce oxidation, improve night vision, and improve circulation in the lower extremities, something diabetics like Raymond have struggled with for years. But no one expected that the most miraculous thing was not in the legs, but in the memory. One evening, while Sophia was folding towels, Mr. Raymond muttered, "When you were 5 years old, your dad took you fishing at Grapevine Lake. Do you remember?" Sophia was stunned. It was a memory her father had not mentioned in more than 10 years, since senile dementia began to take hold. "I remember, very clearly." Bilberry, a small fruit the size of a fingertip, cannot cure old age, but perhaps it helps to retain the remaining memories before the real darkness comes. "Aunt Clarissa in California invited you to my wedding. She's going to dance, and I want you to walk me down the aisle." Raymond did not answer immediately, but in his eyes there was a silver light, just enough light to see the road, to remember the steps. And he took his daughter the last distance, on feet that could still feel emotions. A soldier rose with ginger. A husband kept his heart with hawthorn. An artist walked back with turmeric. A father found memories with garlic and bilberry. You think the story is over? Are not. In the middle of the United States, Missouri, an elderly woman is harvesting dried leaves, cutting off pieces of brown roots, drying them in the gentle sun, to make tea. A tea that almost no one knows about, but is helping thousands of seniors keep their blood vessels from clogging. Butcher's broom. Here, no one calls her doctor or medicine woman. People just call her Millie, the root woman. She lives in a small log cabin and grows dozens of exotic plants by hand, from cattails to pennywort to a hardy thorny root that she calls a broom for blood. Its real name was Butcher's broom. It sounded like something out of a fairy tale, but Millie never saw it as magical. She believed in routine, repetition, and the body's ability to heal itself with the right support. 12 years ago, her doctor warned her about chronic varicose veins. Every afternoon, her legs swelled as if they had been pumped with water. Her skin was as thin as paper, and the slightest touch would cause bruises. She refused to accept lifelong medication. She read books. She studied traditional European medicine. And finally, she chose to grow plants. Butcher's broom, she says, doesn't make the blood flow faster. It just tells the blood vessels to contract properly and not let the blood pool in your heels, missus. Millie drank this root tea every morning, ate a light diet, and walked slowly around the garden for 15 minutes every day, even in winter. And strangely enough, her feet were no longer swollen and no longer cold as ice. When she went back to the city for a checkup, the doctor was surprised. Her veins have rejuvenated. Inside was a wedding invitation. "We are having a small wedding. There will be a dancer, Aunt Clarissa, a poet, Mr. Gus, a bridesmaid, Mr. Raymond, and if you would, please bring your tea." Millie smiled, a smile hidden behind many wrinkles, not because of honor, but because of seeing people she had never met, walking the same path, although each drank a different kind of tea. Clarissa, in her silver silk dress, gently swinging her feet like a bird dropping its wings. Gus recited a poem Mrs. Ruby had written. Leroy closed his eyes and inhaled the scent of ginger. And Raymond, holding his daughter's hand, walked slowly, step by step, without holding on. No one talks about sickness. No one talks about aging. They just talk about the things that get them back on their feet. A cup of tea, a hug, a lift of the foot without thinking. Every root, every bloodline, every story, there is no best. There is only the one you need most, to survive. If you've come this far on this journey with us, you've probably not just heard the stories. You've walked, step by step, with these people sets. Ginger is not just a spice, but a whisper of the earth. Hawthorn is not just a flower, but a heartbeat that doesn't want to stop garlic, turmeric, bilberry. Each is a memory warmed in the blood vessels, waiting for you to awaken again. And if today you find your feet a little warmer or your heart beating a little lighter because a story has touched you, then don't keep it to yourself. Please click subscribe so you don't miss the next humane and emotional videos. Please share this video with your friends and family, especially those who are silently suffering from the cold under their feet without anyone knowing. Because we're not just sharing information, we're giving each other the opportunity to live each day to the fullest. And if you found today's journey inspiring, stay tuned for tomorrow's video, an incredibly important topic dedicated to those who struggle with blood sugar every morning. Top 5 morning habits that diabetics must know help stabilize blood sugar. A video that is not just a guide, but a map to start each day again, correctly and on schedule. See you in tomorrow's video, where every morning is no longer a challenge, but an opportunity to live healthy, free, and hopeful. Stay healthy, stay emotional, and don't forget to move on.